Have you ever stared at a piece of sheet music and it just looks like an ancient secret code? Well, guess what? Today, we're cracking that code. We're going to pull back the curtain on the architecture of rhythm and figure out how musicians actually write down time itself.
So, that brings us to the big question, right? If you don't have seconds and minutes, how in the world do you measure time in music? How does a musician know exactly how long to hold one note or precisely when to jump to the next one? It's a really cool system, and it all starts with one simple fundamental idea.
And that idea is the beat. Just forget about seconds for a minute. In music, the beat is everything. It's our core unit of time. It's that steady, relentless pulse that you can't help but tap your foot or nod your head to. Literally everything else we're about to talk about is built right on top of this pulse.
Okay, so if the beat is our pulse, how do we write it down? How do we measure it? Well, that's where we find music's secret clock. Those little symbols you see on the page, the notes themselves, they're the instructions. Each different shape tells the musician exactly how many beats a sound should last. It's almost like a secret math.
And to make this super easy to understand, we're going to use an analogy that I promise makes perfect sense. Pizza. Yeah, seriously. Just imagine a whole pizza, fresh out of the oven. Every new type of note we learn is just us taking that pizza and slicing it into smaller, perfectly equal pieces. It's honestly that simple.
All right, let's get to it. We're going to build this entire note hierarchy from the ground up, starting with the biggest piece possible, which, in our case, is the entire pizza.
So, meet the whole note. See? It's just an empty oval. Couldn't be simpler. This is our entire pizza. In most of the music you hear every day, this big guy lasts for a full 4 beats. So if you were to play it, you'd hold that sound for 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, what happens if we slice that pizza right down the middle? Well, we get a half note. And you'll notice a little visual change here. It's still that empty oval, but now it has a line attached to it. We call that a stem. And just like the name says, it lasts for exactly half the time of a whole note, just 2 beats.
And you can see the math here is super straightforward. One of those big 4-beat whole notes takes up the exact same amount of time as 2 half notes played one after the other. 2 beats plus 2 beats equals our original 4. The pizza math totally checks out.
Let's slice our pizza again. This brings us to probably the most common note in all of music, the quarter note. Now look closely, because this is the key visual difference. The oval, the note head, is now filled in. This is your standard 1-beat note. This is the foot tap. 1, 2, 3, 4. Most rhythms are built on this foundation.
So let's put them side by side. The half note, that's our 2-beat slice. The quarter note is our 1-beat slice. We've just cut our pizza piece in half again, which means, you guessed it, 2 of these quarter notes fit perfectly inside the time of a single half note. See the pattern? Okay, let's pick up the pace and slice again. This is an 8th note. It's got the filled-in head, it's got the stem, but now it's got a new accessory, a little flag on the end. This note cuts our beat right in half. So instead of counting 1, 2, we're now counting 1 and 2 and, fitting 2 of these sounds into every single beat.
Hey, if 1 flag is good, 2 must be better, right? This is a 16th note, and these things are fast. That second flag is our cue that we're slicing the beat again, this time fitting 4 notes inside a single foot tap. The count gets a little crazy. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. We are moving now.
Okay, that was a lot of notes, I know. But what if I told you there's a really simple system to identify any of them almost instantly? Let's do a quick breakdown of the anatomy of a note so you can recognize them anywhere.
Every single note we've seen is made of just 3 parts. First, you've got the note head. That's the round part. Then, some notes have a stem, which is that vertical line. And for the really fast notes, you've got the flag, that little tail waving off the stem. That's it. Just by looking at those 3 things, you can figure out any note's value.
So here's the real secret, the #1 shortcut to identifying notes. Just look at the note head. That's your biggest clue. If the head is empty, it looks white, it's always one of the longer notes, like a whole or a half note. If it's filled in black, you're looking at a shorter, faster note, like a quarter, 1/8, or 1/16. That one little trick cuts your work in half.
All right, we've got our basic pizza slices down. But what if you need a rhythm that's, somewhere in between those standard sizes? Well, let's talk about a special little character that gives our notes a rhythmic boost. It's just a simple dot, but it's got a very specific superpower. The rule for the dot is actually really easy. When you put a dot after a note, It adds half of that note's original value back to itself. So you just take the original length, cut it in half, and add that on top. Let's look at an example.
Okay, let's take a half note. We know it's worth 2 beats, right? The dot's job is to add half of that value. So what's half of 2? It's 1. We just add that extra beat to our original 2 beats, and bam, our dotted half note is now worth a total of 3 beats. It's just simple addition.
So far, pretty much every slice of our pizza has been about dividing by 2. A whole note becomes 2 half notes, a half note becomes 2 quarter notes, and so on. But music loves to break its own rules. So what happens when you want to divide a beat by 3? Well, let's meet the ultimate rule breaker, the triplet. A triplet is such a cool sound. It lets a musician squeeze 3 perfectly even notes into the time where they would normally only be able to play 2. The most common way you'll see this is 3/8 notes all crammed into the space of a single beat. It creates this awesome, rolling feeling.
So how do you actually feel that rhythm? The easiest trick is to use a 3-syllable word. Just try saying pineapple over one steady beat. Pineapple, pineapple. Or how about elephant? That da-da-da rhythm? That's the sound of a triplet.
And that's pretty much it. That's your basic rhythm toolkit. So let's just recap the big ideas. We know that notes usually get sliced in half just like a pizza. We know that the note head, whether it's empty or full, is our biggest clue for how long a note is. We learned that a dot gives a note a 50% time boost, and that a triplet is the cool rule breaker that fits 3 notes in the space of 2.
So I'll leave you with this thought. You now have the key to start decoding the rhythmic language of music. So the next time you put on your favorite song, listen a little closer. Can you hear those steady quarter notes holding things down? Can you hear the fast little 16ths in the drum fill? Can you feel that rolling triplet? Now that you can see the architecture, what new patterns are you going to hear?